Hi, welcome to your virtual orientation for the White Hawk 29BH by Jayco. We're going to start our orientation on the outside of the RV, and we're going to begin at the front. The first thing that we'll take a look at is your front pass-through storage compartment, and in particular the system to hold is magnetic. In this front compartment we'll find a few different things. We'll find a switch, and that will control these lights at the front, both sides. You'll find 120 volt power, tire pressure gauge, your manual crank for your stabilization jacks, I'll talk about those in a minute, and the manual crank for your electric tongue jack, I'll also talk about that in a minute. You'll see that also in your front storage compartment we have storage for a folding table. I'm not going to take that all the way out now. It operates the same as pretty much any other folding table in the world operates. And the next thing we'll look at is the stabilization jack that we mentioned just previously. There are 4 of them. They're located at the 4 corners of the trailer, and they should only be used to stabilize the trailer once it's fully level. They should never be used to level the RV. And as we stand up, we'll just look directly to the front of your front storage compartment here, and we'll take notice of your side marker light. You'll notice that this side marker light looks a little different maybe. That is because it comes equipped with a pre-wiring and pre-housing for a camera to look at the side view of your RV. This particular unit, the customer has decided to include the cameras as they are not normally included. They are purchased separately. So how you would utilize these, there's a head unit that you put in the tow vehicle, and that will give you the ability to monitor the sides so you can see the sides while driving. As we continue along to the front, we'll notice the battery storage area and battery box. And then directly in front of that, we'll find your double 30-pound propane bottle storage. You'll notice that there's a handle on the regulator. This is what you'd call a crossover regulator. When the handle is pointing in this direction, it will first draw from this tank. However, once this tank drops below a predetermined amount of pressure, that's determined by the regulator and not adjustable. Once it drops below that pressure, it will automatically cross over and draw from this bottle here. What that means is if you're running your furnace late at night, it's cold out, you no longer have to get out and switch your bottles over manually. And directly in front of your propane storage, you'll find your electric tongue jack. It has a loading light for those nighttime hitch-ups, as well as electric control to move the tongue up and down. The other feature that this has is the stopper on the top. Once this is removed, you can use the manual crank found in the front storage compartment to manually move the tongue up and down in any case that either this stops working or just the batteries, anything goes wrong, you can still have the functionality of your tongue. And as we continue along the outside, we'll next come to your safety breakaway switch. This loop will be attached to the tow vehicle. In the event that the tow vehicle is separated from your RV, this pin will be pulled from the housing, engaging the trailer brakes. Conversely, it's important to note that it does happen the odd time during hitch-up or hookups that this pin gets just partially pulled out. And sometimes that's enough to fully engage the brakes, but not actually pull the pin out. So if you find that your brakes are stuck on in the trailer, always come and make sure that that pin is fully into the housing here. Next, we'll come to your solar ready port. This unit is pre-wired for solar, so we have a pre-wired hookup right here at the front tongue. If we stand up, we'll notice the off-door side view camera and the off-door storage pass-through compartment. You'll see we have your spray hose and your 30 amp 25-foot power cord. This can be connected to your campground power or your power at home. Now, most of you will not have a 30 amp plug on the outside of your house, so what we will provide you inside the RV is a conversion block that one end plugs into here, and then it has a male end that will resemble your regular 15 amp plug that you would see in your home and outside your home. So also in this front compartment, we'll see the battery disconnect. What this allows you to do is to disconnect from the battery without having to take the battery off. Now, some things will still draw power with the disconnect on. However, if you're only disconnecting for a short amount of time, it will save you having to pull the battery off entirely. As we continue to go along the outside of the RV, the next thing we're going to come to is an outside storage compartment. Nothing to note here other than it is some extra storage. Next, you'll see your outdoor shower and your city water connection and your black tank flush. Your black tank flush will help you flush or clean out your black tank. You hook your garden hose up to this spout, turn on the water, and it will help you flush out that tank. The next thing that we'll talk about is your city water connection. If you hook the garden hose up from your house or from your campground, this will basically pressurize the water system inside the RV to allow you to use the water much like you would in the home. And if we drop down here, you'll notice the output for your black or gray water tanks, as well as the valve handles for your black and gray water tanks. You'll notice there are 3, 1 black and 2 gray tanks, that all will function using this output. We have your 30 amp power connection point. This is where you would hook the power up to the RV from your campground or from your home. I showed you the cable earlier in the front storage compartment on the outdoor side. It doesn't have to be there, that's just generally where we put it. This is where you connect it. Right next to that we have the main input for the cable or satellite for the RV. As we continue along the back, previously when I talked about the side cameras, I mentioned the rear view camera as well, and this unit does have it installed. So like I mentioned, it will allow you to see the back of the RV while it's moving via a head unit that is inside the tow vehicle. These are purchased separately but can be very useful. You'll also see that we have ladder access to the roof as well. We have your outdoor kitchen. Nice prep surface here, as well as sink and an additional prep surface. Your mini fridge and your outdoor grill or griddle. Now this griddle functions with a quick connect that connects it to the propane system of the RV, so you don't need any additional bottles. And it does that right here on the griddle end, and on the RV end it connects here via this quick connect port. Now it is important to note that there is a valve here as well. So at the moment this valve is in the closed position. When you turn it so it is in line with the fitting, that would be the open position of the valve. Now, as far as the mounting of your griddle, it's pretty straightforward. There is a receiver in here. This goes into the receiver. This third piece mounts into this end of this receiver, and the griddle and its legs go through the holes on this top and just sit in there. So the mount is 3 pieces and the griddle that sits on top. All of these can be found in your front storage compartment. So under your awning here, we have 2 speakers that can be controlled via the stereo on the inside of the RV. And we also have the outside access to your water heater. A couple things to make note of is your drain plug. And your pressure relief valve. Always make sure this pressure relief valve is open before you remove your drain plug, as this drain plug, if the pressure system is still pressurized, will shoot out like a rocket. So always make sure you relieve the pressure with the pressure relief valve. The last thing of importance here, I would say, would be your reset. So next door we have the venting for your refrigerator. This venting is needed to be obstruction free in order for the proper functioning of your refrigerator. And directly below that, we'll take note of the exhaust for your furnace. I'd like to make special mention that this is hot when it's underneath the awning, as it is more likely you'll come in contact with it. So just be aware that this does get quite warm when the furnace is running. And if we move over to your potable water input, this is where you put the garden hose in order to fill up your freshwater tank. You would use that when you are camping somewhere there isn't a water supply, and you would be using the onboard water pump in order to draw the water for you from the freshwater tank, which would then pressurize your system so you could use it much like you'd use your water at home. And directly below there we have an output for your cable or satellite, as well as 120 volt power, so you can watch your TV or satellite or cable out here underneath the awning. So let's take a step inside and we'll see what kind of features we have. So the first thing that we'll look at right inside the door is your fire extinguisher. It's very important you know where this is. I like where they have it situated. It's very handy and accessible if you're outside cooking, but it is also easily accessible right inside here, as your cooking area is right here. While we're looking down, we'll have a look at your carbon monoxide propane detector or alarm. You see right now there is a green light on. That means the system is functioning properly. There is a button on the front that you can press to test the system. When you do so, it'll turn red. You'll hear a series of loud beeps, and then it'll turn back to green. That would indicate that the system is functioning properly. It's a good idea to test this every once in a while. I usually suggest you test it with the smoke detector right above us here. And the general rule of thumb for your smoke detector is every 6 months at daylight savings time. Just makes it easier to remember, and that way you can always be sure that you are protected. Also, right inside the door to the right, we have the unit Gfci plug. You'll see if I trip it, a red light turns on. That would indicate that the Gfci portion is not functioning properly. So anything connected to the load side of this plug would not work. There would be no power to it. So you'd want to come here, if you see the red light on, press the reset, and then anything on the load side should now work again. Some receptacles that would be on your load side would be anything in the kitchen, your water, counter plug in the bathroom, and outside plugs. So something to think about if you find that you don't have power at a receptacle. Okay, also on the right inside the door, We have your switching for your awning and living room lights, as well as the security lights on the outside of the trailer. And then we also have your J command system. I'll cover that a little bit more in detail in a second. I just want to take a minute to mention this switch here. As it's labeled, you'll see fireplace and water heater. So with the 30 amps, you're not able to run both things at the same time. So you kind of have to pick and choose. Right now it's switched to fireplace. And in order to use your water heater, you would have to turn the switch up to use your water heater on electricity. With the fireplace, you are still able to use your water heater with the gas or propane system. So, talking about the J command, it can be paired with an Android or Apple phone. I'll just give you the basic functionality. You'll see right now we're on a motor screen, which would give you access to controls for your awning and your slide. This top button here will switch you between screens. And then this one here will select different items on each screen. So this switches between screens, this moves you around in a screen. Now, in order to select things or say raise temperature, or depending on what screen you're on, these either extend or retract if it's an awning or a slide, or they turn something on or off. Now, if I wanted to turn the water pump on, now I've pressed this button to select the water pump, go up here, turn it on, and I can hear the water kick on. Along the bottom, we also have these preset buttons. One is a preset button for the water pump, which is handy, and another is a preset button for your temperature controls. And then we have switching for lights in and around the RV. Let's move on here. See, we have the ladder and your bunking system. But on the wall over there in the corner, you'll see that there is a shelf. And just to the front of that shelf, there is 120 volt AC power, and there are 2 USB charging ports. And on the lower bunk, we will notice that we have the same USB charging ports and 120 AC power. And we also have your emergency exit. Now you will notice that half of this bunk, it does flip up and has this latch so you can connect, but it does give you handy storage for some larger items, possibly a couple small bikes, so you can store some larger items under your bunk. And one thing I will point out, that there are tie downs as well inside, so whatever it is that you're storing in here, you can tie it down to make sure it does not move around. Also another nice feature. As we step into your bathroom here, again, we just want to make note, you have your 120 volt power here. And just to realize that this will be connected to the load side of your Gfci plug here, so if that were to be tripped, you would find that this would not be functional. You'd have no power here. Okay. Point out a few neat features in here. We have your extra tabletop. There is a locking feature. Again, it's not very difficult to figure out, just hard to do with one hand and the camera, so I'm not going to actually lock it in. But you can see that it gives you a nice little extra bit of counter space. As we come fully into the RV, we'll notice your cooktop. First thing you want to do before you ever light this is open it up so the glass is out of the way. Also, the first thing you want to do before you move your RV is close it to make sure this is closed. The last thing we want to do is have a nice glass cooktop that gets smashed. In order to light these burners, turn the handle to the light position and turn your sparker knob here and it will light. In order to light the oven, always open the door when you're lighting. In order to light the oven, it's much the same. Turn it to the light position. However, when you turn the sparker knob, you must also press and hold the knob in. slide over here and take a look at refrigerator. We had mentioned the outside of it when we were outside. Now that we're inside, we're going to talk about the inside of it. It has 3 different modes. We'll turn this on. We have a gas only mode, which will only draw from your propane tanks. We have an auto mode that will choose between gas or electric. It will always choose electric if it is present. And then we have just a forced electric mode. If you ever go to light on gas and you see that you come in and the light is flashing here, that would indicate that it did not light properly. The appliance will try to light 3 times, and if it is unable to do so, it will stop and shut down. So what I would do is turn it off. The usual culprit is the bottles out front the valves aren't open, or you've just opened them and there just isn't enough pressure built up in the system. We'll drop down and we'll take a look at the load center for this RV, and we'll notice here we have breakers, much like you would see in your home, and they function pretty much the same. And right above there we have fuses like you'd see in your vehicle. There are some red LED lights that will light up if the fuses aren't functioning properly. You see your fireplace, like we already mentioned. It will only work if the switch just inside the door to the right there is switched to the fireplace setting. Let's take a look at your stereo. The stereo has Bluetooth, auxiliary, and HDMI connectivity options, and it also has a 5-volt USB charging option as well. We can play DVDs, and we have 2 zones for the speakers. So what that means is, if you have it on zone 1, you'll hear everything inside the RV. On zone 2, that will play whatever is playing through the stereo on the speakers that I showed you earlier outside under the awning. Now you can have all zones off, all zones on, or any combination thereof. So as we make our way into the main bedroom here, we'll make note of a mounting bracket position that's pre-marked if you wish to purchase the TV separately, as well as the power supply and your output for a cable or satellite. Also on the front here, we'll take a minute to talk about your emergency exit. This emergency exit is the same as the one that is inside the bunk area. So in order to use it, you press down on the black tab, push the red handle over and out till it's perfectly perpendicular from the wall to the trailer or the window, and then you push it straight out. Now you can see there I had a little bit of trouble at first. The window hasn't been opened a while. Sometimes the seal will be really tight. Just push, you're not going to break it, and if it's an emergency, who cares if you do. So you push that all the way out of the RV, pull this red tab to remove the screen, then you can escape to safety. As we stand up and look to our left here, we'll notice on the outside I talked about the hookup spot for your pre-wired solar, and what we have inside is a space marked for a cutout where your inside head unit would go if you chose to purchase that separately. And what this would do would be allow you to monitor the solar system. So everything you need should be behind this wall in the cutout. You just have to purchase the unit itself. So we'll see in the bedroom we have some USB charging as well as 120-volt charging on either side of your bed, as well as a very large underbed storage area. As we turn and make our way back into the main area of the RV, we want to take a minute and talk about the location of your hot water tank on the inside and your water pump. There are 2 black Red Robertson screws here, and the same thing here. If you remove those, you will have access to both your hot water tank and your water pump. Why would you need access to them? Mainly for winterization. If you're going to winterize yourself, there is a setting on your water pump, or a valve I should say on your water pump, that will switch it between drawing from your water tank or drawing from your fuel tube. In order to winterize, you'd want to turn it so it pulls from a fill tube, because you'd put that tube into the antifreeze. However, if you're wanting to, in the summertime, possibly camp where you're not hooked up to a campground water supply, you'll want to switch that back to pull from the freshwater tank. And the same thing goes for your hot water tank. On the inside, there are the two valves that you will turn in order to switch it between winterizing or summer mode. One way it'll put water through your hot water tank, that would be summer mode, and the other way it basically bypasses the hot water tank in order to not fill up your water tank with antifreeze. Then one last thing that I want to make mention of is the temperature. Your thermostat is all done through the J Command system, so it would take a minute to familiarize yourself with that. But when you're using the AC function of this, I just want to note that with the baffles open, such as they are now, the majority of the cool air will fall right here. With the baffles closed, however, it will force the air to these ports that you will see located throughout the RV. Well, I hope you enjoyed the virtual orientation. Hopefully I didn't miss anything that was important to you. If I did though, I apologize, but we'd be happy to help you out. Just give us a call and we'll do our best to make sure you're comfortable with your new RV. Thank you.